Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Achiever Show. I'm your host, Dr. Lakeisha Simmons, and today I am so excited to share with you the authors of Cashing Out. You may know them really well as Rich and Regular, Julien and Kiersten Saunders. Cannot wait to dive into this conversation today because they have a new book out. And this book is different from other books, and I can't wait for you to understand why it's so important to cash out as we talk about fire and money and relationships. So stay tuned and let me go ahead and bring Julien and Kiersten to the stage.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. How are you?
We are good. Can't complain.
Life is really exciting for you too. And what I love most is that you're married and you're on this journey together and you are spreading the good news about financial freedom and financial independence. So why don't you go ahead and share with our listeners and those who are watching on YouTube a little bit about who you are and why financial freedom is so important.
Yeah, so we're Julien and Kiersten. We live in Atlanta. We've been married almost 7 years, and we are parents to a 5-year-old son. And we found the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early movement, about almost 10 years ago, when we were in the middle of debt payoff and we were dating and we were talking about getting married. And at first, when I found it, I was completely turned off by it. I thought it was frugal. It was unnecessary frugality. I thought it was extreme. And a lot of it was because I was a classic high achiever. I took a lot of pride in my accolades and titles and, ambitions, career ambitions. And so the idea that I would give that up early was just foreign to me. Luckily, Julien was a little more financially savvy at the time, and he was able to kind of talk me through how investing worked, how what kind of life we could live if we kind of pursued this path. And so we agreed to do it, and we paid off $200,000 of debt in 5 years. We did a little bit of stint as real estate investors. We started our blog to try to get more people who look like us interested in the movement and its possibilities. And now we're authors of a book called Cashing Out, which is our attempt to kind of spread the message even further by giving it a different use case than the one that most people, tend to default to.
Wow. Okay. So there's so much to dive into there. Julien, grab the book. Let's see the book.
This is it.
Look at that. Cashing out. I love it. I love it.
It's our book
Cashing
A
baby.
book
out.
baby.
Book baby. Yes. A labor of love, right?
It sure is.
A labor of love. So, okay. So, Julien, tell me. So she was kicking and screaming a little bit, right? And I understand it because what we've heard about the fire movement is that you have to be on beans and rice, even though I love beans and rice,
Me
but you
too.
have to be on beans and rice, and you have to live extremely frugal, and you can't enjoy your life, and you know, and to be honest, my experience has not been that because I live a values based life, right? I spend money on things I value. And so if I don't value it and it doesn't help me with my long term goals, I'll get rid of it. I won't pay for it. So, Julien, explain to us how you were able to share the good news about this to Kiersten to help her get on board because there's a lot of couples who listen. And this is a big question. They want to know. One person wants to do it, one person doesn't. So share with us how that went for you too.
Yeah, it wasn't, as she said, like she wasn't sold on the idea immediately. And a lot of that had to do with how the idea was kind of defined and a lot of the stories that that lifestyle was centered around. It didn't look desirable. It
Right.
didn't look familiar. But I know her enough to know that she's very rewards driven. And so it was really just a matter of saying, well, here's the path that you believe that you're on, this path of, wanting to keep working hard and hustle and getting to the next job, the next promotion, bigger paychecks, and all of the perks that come with that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does take away from other things. And so knowing who she was as someone who's very family focused, started thinking about, well, when do you think that you'll be able to do some of these things while you're also having this sort of high-powered career? And then the other thing was just kind of looking at like what we see in front of us, right? Like look up this organization and tell me where you see the ceiling, right? Where do you see that there are just fewer and fewer people that look like you? And how do you think that factors into the likelihood that you will actually achieve some of the things that you set out to accomplish? And that's not to say that there's something wrong with wanting to be the first, but there's a cost to being the first. The cost to being the first is being the only, and that unlocks an entirely different set of issues and challenges that take away from some of the things that she was saying was important to her, like family and the freedom to travel, and even just the ability to nurture the kind of relationship that we were having at the time and are still having now. And so it was really just a matter of saying, well, let's weigh the costs or the pros and cons of one way of life compared to this other way of life. And let's just figure out a way to accomplish a little bit of both, or just make a decision to transition away from one and into another. And I think by showing her what she would gain by just ultimately having freedom, not having to worry about money or even think about money the way that she was thinking about it now, I think is ultimately what won her over.
Awesome. So let's talk about that last piece, that mindset, right? Because that hinders so many people from even embarking on the journey. So let's first talk about your mindset with your debt payoff, because this summer I'm actually going to do a budget and debt payoff boot camp.
Okay.
Because that is such a barrier for so many people. They already say, well, I can't even think about retiring early, or financial freedom is not for me because I already have all this debt and I'm just gonna live with this debt. But you paid off $200,000 in, what was it, 5 years or so? So talk about the mindset. How were you able to do it mindset wise? What made you say, I can do it and we're going to do it?
She may have a different response, but I actually think, even when you were kind of talking a little bit about your own journey before we went live, a lot of it was very similar to what you were explaining and going through. And it's really, I think at some point we owe it to ourselves to just do the math in terms of how much money we've actually earned or will be earning, let's say, over a decade. And whatever that number is, when you look at that number and then compare that to how much you've saved or what your net worth may be, like for most people, the difference between those two should actually be a little alarming, right? It's like, how is it possible that I've earned so much money or am projected to earn so much money, but I have so little to show for it right now? And that will likely stay the same because I've not done certain things like saving or investing, or in our case, reducing debt, or some combination of all of the above. And so that was the big thing for me. But it was also, as I said before, looking up the organization, looking into our community, and thinking about how many people I knew that I could say were successfully retired. What did they do to get there? And the reality was, it was very, very few people. Most of the people that I knew that were retired were actually still working. And not in a fulfilling way, like working because they absolutely had to, because they needed health insurance, or because they really needed the supplemental income for any variety of reasons. And so it was really just a matter of looking at the data, looking at the world that I saw around me, and saying, hey, there's a pretty good chance that if you do what all of those people have done, you're going to end up exactly where they are. And so you have to be willing to think differently. And sometimes those thoughts, those practices, and those habits aren't going to be in your community. You're not going to, the same old thing will be reinforced by what you see every day. So you have to look outside. You have to do things like join boot camps with other willing people who are willing to think differently, in order to kind of reboot your mindset and create a different set of normal behaviors and habits. And I think that's like the key. I'm glad you're doing that, because like that is the key to making it feel possible. It's like when you're surrounded by people who are doing it or in the process or who have done it, it doesn't feel like such a foreign idea anymore.
I think for me, one of the thoughts that gave me a lot of empowerment and motivation when we were paying it off was the easiest way to get a raise was to give myself one. And so I thought about every debt that I paid off, whether it was a credit card, a car note, a tax bill, a student loan, whatever it was, I thought of it as giving myself a raise. And I worked as hard at it as I would preparing for interviews or learning new skills in order to get different jobs. And I was doing that stuff too. But I energetically was putting the same amount of effort into getting this monkey off of my back so that I could feel when I did get a raise at work, I could feel like the dual power of having no debt and also earning more at work.
That is really truly the key. And once you get on fire about it, right, of paying something off, and every extra that you get, like you said, is dual power, is extra momentum towards paying that off, and it is satisfying. I want people to know that. I know when you look at a huge debt, you say to yourself, oh, I'm never going to pay this off. And I know a lot of people who have, you know, 6 figures of debt, and they just say, oh, I'm just not even gonna worry about it because I'll never be able to pay that off. Well, you won't if that is the mentality. But if you just make that adjustment to say, I can do this and I'm gonna go all in with doing it, I can actually accomplish anything. I can accomplish anything that I want in life if I'm willing to put in the effort and if I have the faith in myself.
Yeah.
And you have to admit to yourself that you don't know what you're like without debt, right? You don't know that person yet. Give yourself a chance to meet them. I think it's hard because people assume that they'll have the same thoughts and feelings when they have debt versus when they don't. And it's like, no, your brain literally changes in the process. And I think I can never remember who said this, but somebody said describing debt freedom is like trying to describe what salt tastes like. So imagine if you've been eating unseasoned food your whole life, and then you get some that's seasoned, you get a little salt in the chicken, a little extra, right. And it's like, oh, is that what chicken's supposed to taste like? Like, dang. And it's like, as many people have been trying to tell you your food is under seasoned, it don't matter because you don't know any different.
Right.
And so like, you kind of have to go through the process. It's a bit of a fight club. Like you learn it by going through it. And that's the problem with debt payoff, is that so many of us rarely get to experience it because the debt engine of the United States starts as like a teenager, right? If you go to school, if you go to college and you have to take out a loan, we're so foreign to this idea of not needing an advance either from a mortgage company or from a student loan company or from our government in whatever form to experience the next milestone in life. And so when you talk about retirement, which is really the only milestone that does not give you some kind of loan that you can take out, there's Social Security, but that's a totally different, like that's a different conversation. There's the idea that America has a pension plan of Social Security that you can borrow from or take from once you're retired. But generally speaking, there's no mortgage you can take out if you want to retire that helps you subsidize your life for the next 30 years. There's no student loan that you can take out that helps you pay for this thing that's going to get you to the next level. You have to save for retirement. You have to. That's the only option. And so like wrapping your head around those mindset shifts that like no one's coming to rescue you when it comes to your ability to get off the work treadmill, hamster wheel, whatever it's called.
Exactly.
It helps you say like, oh, I'm all I got. Like we all we got. So the more you delay it, the more likely it is you're going to have a tough time figuring out when to quit.
Yeah.
Facts, as they say, for sure, because I think it was Keisha Blair. I don't know if you know Keisha Blair, but she has a phenomenal story about financial freedom. And she was on the podcast a few months ago. And I'll never forget that she said, even if you're not on board with this whole retiring early or being financially free before 65, you really need to get your ducks in a row, because studies show that about every 10 years, when you become an adult, there's going to be some type of crisis financially. Something's going to happen, whether it's somebody gets sick, somebody passes away, a job loss, or this or that. Something happens and you need to be financially free or have a great amount of wealth to overcome that. Her husband passed away. They had just had a newborn baby and he was working all day long. And he wasn't feeling well at all. He was calling her through the day. Oh, I just don't feel well, but I have all these analysts that need me to check their work today. So I'm going to go to the doctor as soon as I get off work. So he was suffering all day. And that evening when he left work, he called her and he said, Keisha, I'm going directly to the emergency room. Meet me there. She met him there. And 3 hours later, she was walking out with all of his things. And he did not come home with her. Wow. And that, thank God, they had been on a journey of financial freedom. So even though they were still working, they were pretty much financially free. And so she was able to mourn in peace, not having it, wouldn't want to have to go back to work, or she just quit her job and took the children. They went abroad, lived for a year just to heal. And so I tell people all the time, I know you look and say, oh, financial freedom. I don't mind working. I like my job. Or, you know, I've heard it all, right? I've heard it all. I like my job. But at the end of the day, it's not even about how much you like your job.
Yeah.
Because anything can happen. And if you're not prepared for whatever that catastrophe may be, then you're really doing a disservice to yourself today. Your future self will thank you if you start investing, whatever it is, even just saving. Let's just start with saving. If you're not comfortable with the stock market yet, or you're not really familiar with real estate investments yet, or you don't want to start a business yet, just build up a 6-figure savings if that's what makes you comfortable. But do something, take some sort of action.
Yeah, we talk about that. It's almost like you got an early copy of our book. We talk about things like that, and it really highlights how irrationally optimistic Americans are. Like, we're very, very optimistic people, and we like to think about that, but we are very optimistic people, almost to our detriment, because we always feel that, you know, we'll have the energy, that we'll be able to make up for it in the future, or that things will work itself out. And some of us tap into our faith and we sort of use that to add an additional layer of optimism. And sometimes we do that to the detriment of actually planning and preparing for these catastrophes. And you said that may happen, or they will happen, to your point. Whether it's every 10 years, for some people, it rains even more and heavier than that. That is the reality, and that's what we should actually be preparing for.
Let's talk about this book. So those of us in the culture, we've heard of cashing out. We know. But let's, you know, for the audience, we have a diverse audience, so we want everyone to understand the meaning. Tell us the meaning of cashing out, and tell us about some of the chapters in there, what people are going to learn, and what this book is going to help them do, why they need to get it, and tell us, you know, the date. So I'm going to bring you up and let you go all in.
Yeah. Okay. We were both jumping to answer the question. So cashing out is, again, a term we're all familiar with. It's about knowing when you're winning. And really the premise of the book is flipping what winning looks like in a career perspective. If you are a person of color or a Black person or a marginalized identity, winning is actually, we think of winning as, you know, being able to get the big job or the promotion, but winning in today's labor market is actually being able to walk away on your own terms, being able to quit when you're ready, being able to leave any toxic situation that's not serving you, or even if it's serving you and you're just done with it, just being able to leave. And so the book is about building that use case for financial independence. It's saying that everybody deserves the opportunity to quit a job, to decide that I don't need to be here. It is one thing to choose to want to be here. For all the I love my job people, that's great. It's another thing to feel like you have to be there. And what we're trying to do is get more people to the hump of feeling like they don't have to be there. It's different from retirement. I'm not saying you don't ever have to work again, but you should be able to cash out of any situation that's not serving you anymore. And so in the book, it's kind of divided into two parts. The first part is talking about a lot of the stuff we covered at the beginning, the mindset shifts needed to adopt this way of thinking, because that's not how we were all brought up. That's not how the market continues to condition us. And it's not how the government has set up a lot of the benefits that we're all used to, whether it's healthcare or a 401k plan, right? So we have to do some unlearning before we jump right into the tactics, which is the second part of the book, where we talk about the interpersonal conflicts that you're going to come up with. So there's an investing chapter where we talk about what to say when you've got a family friend who might be your financial advisor, or you've got cousins or moms who may need your help or have a business proposition for you. We talk about that conflict. We talk about relationships. We have a whole chapter on relationships. If you're struggling to have productive money conversations with your partner, we have a chapter on building community, because that to us is the secret weapon, the superpower of any financial journey, is having a community beyond just your known friends and family to encourage you along the way. And then we have a chapter for the skeptics. We have a chapter at the end saying, what if we're wrong? And we talk about, like, even if we're half wrong, you're still in a better position than most of the country, right? You're still most of the world, right? And so the merits for doing this aren't to hit some number, aren't to like buy the best bag or the best car. If that's your motivation, great. But really it's about creating a safety net so that you have an opportunity to enjoy your one life here without being at work all the time.
I can't wait to get my copy. Maybe I'll get a gift copy in the mail, but
Absolutely.
I'll buy 10 anyway, because it's important. And I've read pretty much all the books out there have to do with anything with wealth building, financial freedom, financial independence, retiring early. And I've been waiting on one from our demographic that can speak to the things that we have specifically dealt with, that will help those who look like us overcome the mentality. And we know that our mentality is not our fault. It's come from years of oppression and years of what our ancestors went through. And we have a lot to overcome. So I'm really excited about this book. I'm excited for you too. This gives me the chills. I love it. I love Black love. I love what you're doing to expand the money conversations. You have a blog, Rich and Regular. You have a documentary series that you go to different cities and you have these dinner conversations. So I want you to tell people where they can watch the show. Where can they watch your show?
Yeah, so the show is called Money on the Table, and it is another one of our ideas that we just really love, because what it does is it helps to, I think, make some of these difficult conversations or topics a little bit more entertaining. In season 1, we did it in the early days of the pandemic, where we would basically cook a meal and then have a financial and career-related conversation over dinner. In season 2 is when we actually took the show on the road, and we traveled to a bunch of different cities, met up with some of our money friends and experts, and had those conversations with them while supporting Black-owned businesses along the way. And so that was really, really cool. Season 3, I hope, will be on a network, right? And so we're working with a production company. We're having conversations with networks right now to see if we can help take this show to the next level. When we think about the impact that we want to have, quite honestly, we have the privilege of being able to write this book and having it distributed and available wherever books are sold for the most part. But we know that not everyone's going to buy a book. Not everyone wants to read a book, right? And that's fair. We have the audio book, but there's some people who are more visual. And quite honestly, Americans value entertainment, right? And so when I think about the impact that we want to have with that show, but really any of our ideas, is really about embracing the power of media, whether it be social media or mass media, to have the similar impact on people who may be interested in science that a Carl Hagen or a Neil deGrasse Tyson may have had, or Bill Nye, or if you think about the impact that LeVar Burton had with Reading Rainbow on literacy rates, like the impact that Anthony Bourdain had on people's interest to travel to places and try foods that they would have never been willing to try before. And so that's the world that we want to play in. That's where we think we have an opportunity to help offer some valuable perspective, but also to do it, to your point, for the culture. Like, there's never been a better time for us to create some of these ideas. And so we're really fortunate to have partners in mass media that are trying to help us to make that a reality.
I love it. And you will have a show, and it will be a hit. And
Oh,
I hope you don't forget all of us little people here who love you.
You're gonna come to
um,
Nashville, Tennessee, and you're gonna show us around and take us to some good restaurants, and we'll
oh
talk
yeah.
about,
Oh yeah.
you and your community. But
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
and you ain't no little people, by the way.
no.
So you're doing your thing out there too.
Yeah.
So it's really, really awesome, and
Yeah.
we love that, because to your point, like we need this, right? Like
Hmm.
our
We
culture
do.
needs this.
We are
Um,
so underserved
we're
online
completely underserved in
in
every
every
aspect
aspect, really.
of it.
Yeah.
And so we all play a part, I think, in helping to reshape what the trajectory of wealth for our community and really just everyday Americans looks like. And so
Hmm.
it's a privilege to do this kind of work to help change people's lives. And
Yes.
we're happy to be in the fight with you, in addition to
Yes.
everyone else out there that is in their own unique way trying to help people kind of catch on or catch fire, if you will,
Mm.
to really think about like what type of broader impact on the world that this movement could have.
Absolutely. And for me, it really is important to share the knowledge, to let
Mhm.
people know what's possible and to give them the tools and the steps to even attempt to not necessarily mimic it, but to chart their own journey,
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
So everybody's journey is different. My number is not your number. And really, to be honest, at a certain point, we're past what a number is. It truly is about how you want to spend your time and what you want to do with your life. And I love how you two have decided that this is what we want to do with our lives. Because you had, what were your careers before you really went full time with the blog?
We were both in a brand. Well, he was in a brand role, and I was in a marketing role within a hospitality company.
Mhm.
Okay. So for our listeners, that's a those are careers that we know.
Oh
We know
yeah.
people who have those careers. So those are everyday working careers,
Mhm.
but they
Mhm.
decided to pay off their debt, get on a fire journey. But what I want everybody to realize here is not always an end goal of just retiring, hanging up your hat, and you're done. But
Right.
it's about how now do I want to spend my time? Who do I truly want to serve? And so
Mhm.
for me, it's the same. I quote unquote early retired, but I still do coaching here. I still do this podcast, this show. I want to do a boot camp to help those who really want to understand their budget better and pay off debt. And this is just because now I have the time to spend my time how I want, to make the impact that I want, take my children to school, make their breakfast. I have a new husband, and he helps out a lot. So we do a lot of things with our boys. We take them on trips. I get to work out every day. I get to
Mhm.
cook healthy meals, things that I wasn't always able to do when I was at that 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and
Yeah.
driving in the commute and only had weekends and trying to manage vacation time. So it's not even always about the number, the complete emphasis on the number. Obviously, you need to know where at what point you can cash out and go just simply live your life and do the things that are impactful. But it doesn't mean that your life ends. It
Right.
just means your life is now more open. Your
Yeah.
life is full of more freedom and more experiences, and you don't have that weight and worry about money. That I think that's the huge takeaway from this conversation today is, how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to spend your life? Be ready to cash out at the moment that job or that career no longer serves you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've spoken a little bit about children, right? And
Mhm.
making their breakfast or being able to do things. For me, the dream is at some point taking my son on a cross country trip so he can actually see some of the things in real life and touch them that he's only been able to see on television. But I think one of the things that often gets missed as we start talking about one of the perks and the benefits of this from an interpersonal standpoint is also being there with or for your parents during their
Mhm.
aging years, right? Your parents are getting old if you still have parents, right? And so you really want to be able to be there. They may actually need your help, right? And I think a lot of people don't really think about that until they're actually forced to deal with it. So let's say mom or dad, gets hit with a bad diagnosis. Now that's when it triggers people that, wow, I have a choice to make, in terms of, am I going to take this business trip, or am I even going to take this job that's going to potentially take me away from being here, versus wanting to spend some time and actually being there for our parents. And considering so many of us are actually financially responsible for those parents, I think that's just one of those unspoken conflicts, but also dilemmas that a lot of people are struggling with, that I think financial independence and even just the pursuit of it can actually help you, right? You may put yourself in a position where, if you find out that your parents are only half a year, and I hate to sort of trigger any memories for people who may be struggling with that, but this is something that a lot of people deal with. You have an option to say, this is what I want to do with the next 6 months of my life. I want to just be there for her, right? And it doesn't have to be your parents. It could be any loved one, right? And so it's so much greater than just the ability to buy nice things, or the sort of joy that comes from looking at a net worth, calculation, or a growing value, or in this case of a hiccup market, like actually a declining value. But it's a privilege to be able to say that you've lost a lot of money in the market over the last couple of days. And so these are things that, to Kirsten's point, you don't start to really understand until you're already in it. And so the journey starts with learning. It then continues with building relationships and community with other people. But it continues as you start to create your own comfort levels with the ups and downs, and when life really starts to punch you in the face. Like, that is a part of the learning experience. And I think the longer you're in it, the more you start to realize that it's so great to be able to kind of embrace those moments, and to not just be restricted to the fact that I still have to get up and go to work the next day. Like, if you have that option, if you've earned that privilege, it's one of life's greatest joys.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, another benefit is that now we get to pick our hard, right? It's all hard. Saving is hard. Working is hard. It's all hard. But when I was traditionally employed, I didn't get to pick what was my hard. I got it handed down from a manager. I was doing things. I remember when I was pregnant and interviewing for a job, and I was hiding the fact that I was pregnant. That was hard. It didn't feel hard at the time. It felt normal. But now that I'm where I am now, I can look back and be like, can you imagine going through the happiest moment of your life and not feeling like you can share that with your colleagues, or feeling like it may ruin the chances of you getting a promotion that you deserve, right? So now, to Julian's point, when things come up, I get to choose, like, oh, it's going to be hard to see my mom sick, or to figure out how to balance this caretaking need on top of the other things that I want to do. But I'm going to choose to do that because it's valuable to me. And I think that's another kind of unspoken benefit, is just the idea of, like, regardless of whatever path you take, it's going to be hard. Like, yes, parts of life are easy and then other parts are hard. You either deal with the hard of not knowing how your bills are going to get paid, not knowing if you're going to be able to afford housing long term, not knowing how health insurance is going to factor into your overall financial plan. Or you pick the hard that says, you know what, today I'm not going to eat out. Today I'm going to start a side hustle that may take 3 or 4 years to actually bear fruit, but, like, I'm willing to do that hard work now versus waiting until I don't have a choice in what kind of hardships I experience.
You two are preaching today. Because, and you're definitely stepping on some toes today, because every I do the Wealthy Achiever program every couple of months. I'll take a group of women and work with them, and every single time during that period, something happens to someone's parent. Either passed away unexpectedly, or took a fall, and now they have to go travel and take care of them, or maybe a house that's going in foreclosure. My mom's house going in foreclosure. Now I have to take off and go do this. And this speaks to the achieve her part, right? As a woman, Kiersten, you can speak to this. Men and women both help with this, but as women, since we're typically more nurturing side, we bear a lot of that on our hearts, and we say, okay, I gotta go right now. And I know I've done it with my mother, my grandmother. I remember my grandmother had a heart attack. I stopped what I was doing. I didn't even pack a bag. I got in the car and I was gone. Right. Mm-hmm. So we want to be ready for those things. And you're right, Julien, our parents are aging. Both of my parents right now are down health-wise and having to get echogram. I can't never say that word, but cardiograms or whatever, things I haven't had to deal with before. Right. Yeah. And they're having to have all these different procedures and things. And so, yes, we want to be ready. And just to kind of sum this up, and I'm going to let you wrap up and tell us when we can get your book. But I just want to share that everything you said is so spot on, because the reason why I pulled the trigger and left my work is because I had a medical emergency, and it was life or death. And it came out of nowhere is what I thought. Right. And I was hospitalized, and it was, so we talk about our parents, but it could be you.
Yeah.
It literally was me. And I haven't talked about what happened yet. At some point I probably will, but that I was so thankful to God that I had been putting away money and I had accumulated all this wealth. And because it made the decision to not go back to work so easy, because my doctor was like, you really don't need to go back to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if you need the money, you're going to have to go. And I said, just write the note. I'm not going back. And luckily I had a partner who told me, because I was really on the fence about it. And he said, why would you go back to a stressful environment? Mm-hmm. Why would you, when you literally were in ICU for 5 days, why would you go back and put yourself through stress when you don't even have to? And at that point, I was like, wow, this is mindset 101 again, because even though I'm a millionaire, I'm still sitting here thinking I need this job when I don't, and my health is at jeopardy. Mm-hmm. So I was able to walk away, and it was the best decision of my life, because now I can focus on my mental health. I can focus on my physical health and my spiritual health. And I'm still able to be a mom, be a wife, and went out with my girlfriends yesterday on a Monday. You know, I would have never done that when I was working out late at night. I was like, I got to get in bed. I got to get up early. And so whatever your path to freedom needs to be, map it out. Those who are listening, if you need help, get the book. Julien and Kiersten, tell us, when is Cashing Out coming out?
Cashing Out will be out and available to the world on June 14th, which is a Tuesday. We are super excited. You can find it anywhere books are sold. It's a great gift item for a new grad in your life, or if you know a man who's a father and they already have everything. You know, some men are just notoriously hard to buy for. This is a great book for the man who has everything and maybe still doesn't have their time yet. So it's we hope that you read it and enjoy it. And it was a joy to write, and we hope that you love it.
And so where can the listeners and those who are watching on YouTube, where can they go to find you online?
Yes, our website is richandregular.com. We're also on social media, mostly on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I think there's also a Pinterest page floating around, but we are not on TikTok, unfortunately. But yeah, that's where they can find us. And that's pretty much where all of the latest and greatest, from books to video content to the book tour, where we'll be traveling the country again. All of those things and stories will be told and will live at richandregular.com.
So excited for you. I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy. And everybody knows I always get emotional on these calls. They know me. And I'm a crier, but I didn't cry today. But my heart is truly full. I'm so very happy for you, because I've been following you for a while. I've been following you, the Rich and Regular. I mean, when you were still working, I was following you.
Yeah.
So Yes.
Yeah,
So
you a day one.
hey, I'm a day one. I'm a day one. And that has helped inspire me on my journey. And this show today is going to inspire so many others who have been thinking, that's not for me. They're going to see today that it is for them. So thank you for being a light. Really
Oh,
appreciate
Thank
it.
you
you.
so much, and we're so happy to see everything that you're doing
Yes.
and growing your brand and your platform and just helping people. So that's amazing. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate that. I honestly do. Thank you so much.